The salt burns where the ropes have rubbed her wrists raw. Isabella Ferrante is 26 years old, and she can taste the Mediterranean on her cracked lips, can feel the ship's rolling motion in her bruised bones, can hear through the hull the prayers of 43 other women who were stolen from their beds in Vieste 7 days ago. She was, until that night, the wife of Marco Ferrante, a prosperous fisherman whose boats supplied half the village's catch, a woman who managed household accounts, raised 2 daughters, attended Mass each Sunday in the church where her parents had been married and her grandparents before them. Now she crouches in the darkness of a Barbary corsair's hold, her nightgown torn and stained with blood that is partly her own and partly her husband's, her wedding ring stolen along with everything else she possessed, her body marked by the examination the corsairs performed on the beach before deciding which women were worth transporting and which should be killed immediately. Her daughters are somewhere on this ship. She has not seen them since the sorting on the beach. They are 8 and 12 years old, and she does not know if they are still alive. The hatch above her opens. Sunlight stabs into the darkness, and she hears the voice that has haunted her dreams for 7 days, the voice of the Rays, the corsair captain, whose name she has learned is Hamid al-Rashid. He speaks Italian with an accent that suggests he has raided these coasts many times before. "The merchant's wife," he says. "The one who fought. Bring her up. The buyers in Algiers want to inspect the quality before we dock." Hands reach down into the hold. She does not resist, she learned on the 2nd day, what resistance costs. A woman named Lucia had tried to throw herself overboard and had been retrieved, punished in ways that the other women were forced to watch, and then thrown overboard anyway because damaged goods brought lower prices. She is pulled onto the deck, into light so bright it blinds her. When her vision clears, she sees the coast of North Africa for the first time, white buildings, climbing hills above a harbor, minarets rising against the blue sky, a city that will be her prison and perhaps her grave. "Algiers," Hamid says, watching her face, "the slave capital of the Mediterranean. By tonight, you will belong to someone else. The question is, who and for what purpose?" "My daughters," she says. "Where are my daughters?" "The children are valuable. They will be sold separately. Young girls adapt more easily than grown women. They forget their old lives, learn the language, become useful. I need to see them. I need to know they are alive." Hamid studies her with an expression she cannot read. "Why? What difference does it make? You cannot protect them. You cannot save them. Knowing they are alive will only make what comes next more painful. They are my children." "They were your children. Now they are merchandise. The sooner you understand that distinction, the easier your transition will be." He gestures to the sailors, and she is taken below again, not to the hold where the other women wait, but to a smaller cabin where water and soap have been prepared. She is going to be cleaned, she realizes, made presentable for the buyers who will decide her fate. And somewhere on this ship, her daughters are being prepared the same way. What you are about to learn has been systematically suppressed by European historians for 500 years. We know about the transatlantic slave trade. We know about the millions of Africans transported to the Americas. We know the horrors of that system because generations of scholars have documented it, because monuments and museums preserve its memory, because the descendants of the enslaved have insisted that their ancestors' suffering be remembered. But there was another slave trade, one that flowed in the opposite direction. For 300 years, from roughly 1,500 to 1,800, Barbary corsairs from North Africa raided the coasts of Europe and captured between 1 million and 1.25 million white Europeans. They attacked Italy, Spain, France, England, Ireland, even Iceland. They depopulated entire coastlines. They created a terror so profound that coastal villages were abandoned, watchtowers were built from Portugal to Greece, and parents taught their children to flee inland at the first sight of strange sails. And then, this history was forgotten. Not lost, forgotten. Deliberately suppressed because the memory was shameful. Because Europeans did not want to remember that they had been enslaved, that their women had been taken and sold, that their civilization had been so vulnerable to raiders from across the sea. Tonight you will learn what happened to those women. You will learn about the corsair ships and the slave markets, about the inspection process and the hierarchies that determined which women went to which fates. You will learn about the harems and the labor camps, about the women who were never ransomed and the women who converted to survive. You will learn about Isabella Ferrante, who was taken from her bed in Vieste and transported to Algiers, who lost her husband and her daughters in a single night, who found herself in a system designed to break everything she had been and remake her into something useful to her captors. Subscribe if you want to understand this hidden history. Comment below telling me where you are watching from. Because Isabella is about to enter the slave market of Algiers, and I am going to tell you exactly what happened there, what the inspection process involved, how women were categorized and priced, what fates awaited them, depending on how they were classified. But first I need to warn you. This history was suppressed for a reason. What you are about to learn is graphic, disturbing, and difficult to hear. The sources that document it, the records of redemptionist priests who ransomed captives, the testimonies of escaped slaves, the administrative records of the Barbary states themselves describe practices that European historians preferred to forget. I am not going to forget. I am going to tell you the truth. And the truth is worse than you imagine. The Barbary corsairs were not pirates in the romantic sense that European literature later imagined. They were state-sponsored raiders, operating under the authority of the Ottoman-aligned states of North Africa, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, and the independent Sultanate of Morocco. Their raids were organized military operations, planned and executed with a precision that European naval forces often could not match. Their ships were fast galleys, designed for coastal raiding, crewed by experienced sailors who knew the Mediterranean's currents and coastlines better than the locals who lived there. The economics were straightforward. European slaves were valuable for ransom, for labor, for sexual purposes. The Barbary states had developed sophisticated markets for processing and selling this human cargo. A successful raid could generate enormous wealth. A corsair captain who captured a shipload of Europeans could become rich in a single voyage. The raids followed predictable patterns. Corsairs would approach a coastal village at night, landing parties just before dawn. They would capture as many people as possible, men, women, children, kill anyone who resisted effectively, and be back at sea before defensive forces could organize. Speed was essential. The raiders wanted to be beyond pursuit before the alarm spread. Women and children were particularly valuable. Men could be ransomed if they were wealthy, or put to labor on galleys and construction projects if they were not. But women and children commanded premium prices in the slave markets because they served purposes that men could not. The system for processing captured women was refined over centuries. Upon arrival in a Barbary port, the captives would be taken to a bathhouse, the hammam, where they would be cleaned, examined, and categorized according to their potential value. Young women, beautiful women, women with skills that might be useful in wealthy households, these were designated for the highest tier markets, where buyers seeking harem slaves or elite domestic servants would compete for them. Older women, plain women, women who showed signs of illness or damage, these were sold in bulk markets to buyers seeking labor rather than beauty. They would work in households, in agriculture, in whatever capacities their owners required. And then there was a third category, women who were neither beautiful enough for the elite markets nor healthy enough for labor. These women were sold cheaply to buyers whose purposes the market administrators did not ask about. Their fates were the worst of all, and the records rarely specify what happened to them. This was the system that awaited Isabella and the 43 other women from Viesta. This was the processing that would determine whether they spent their remaining years in relative comfort or in conditions that made death preferable. Now let us return to Isabella, who has been cleaned and dressed in a simple garment provided by the corsair's clothing that would make her easier to examine and display. The ship docked at Algiers in the early afternoon. She was kept in the cabin, while the cargo, which included captured goods, as well as captured people, was unloaded. Through a small window she caught glimpses of the harbor, dozens of ships, thousands of people moving on the docks, a scale of maritime commerce that dwarfed anything she had seen in Italy. When the other women had been taken ashore, she was brought out last separated from the group, escorted by Hamid himself rather than ordinary sailors. "Why am I being handled differently?" she asked. "Because you are being sold differently." Hamid walked beside her along the dock, seemingly unconcerned that she might try to escape. Where would she go? A European woman alone in Algiers, unable to speak Arabic, unable to blend into the population, she would be recaptured within hours. The general market handles ordinary merchandise. You are not ordinary. Because I fought? Because you are beautiful, educated, and the wife of a merchant, which means you understand household management, accounts, the skills that wealthy buyers value in elite domestic servants. These qualities make you worth more in specialized sales than in the public market. What specialized sales? Private auctions. Wealthy men who want specific qualities in their acquisitions. Men who will pay premium prices for women who meet their particular requirements. They were walking through streets that were narrower and more crowded than anything in Vieste, a chaos of merchants, laborers, animals, languages she did not recognize. The architecture was foreign, the smells were foreign. Everything about this place announced that she was no longer in the world she had known. "My daughters," she said again. "You said they would be sold separately. Where?" Hamid glanced at her. "The children's market operates tomorrow morning. Young girls are in high demand. They sell quickly. I need to see them before they are sold. I need to know who buys them. You are not in a position to make demands. I am in a position to cooperate, or to make trouble. You said yourself that damaged goods bring lower prices. If I make trouble at the auction, if I fight, scream, injure myself, my value decreases. If I cooperate, remain calm, present well, my value increases." She met his eyes. "You profit from my cooperation. I want something in exchange." Hamid stopped walking. The streets continued to flow around them, but for a moment they were an island of stillness in the chaos. "You have been thinking about this. I have had 7 days with nothing to do except think. What do you want?" "Information. Who buys my daughters, where they are taken, what names they are given. I want to know where they are, even if I cannot reach them, even if I never see them again." "Why? What good does the information do you?" "Because someday this might end. Someday I might be ransomed, or freed, or find some way to escape. If that day comes, I need to know where to look for them." "That day will not come. You do not understand how this works. In a few hours you will belong to someone who paid significant money for you. That person will not willingly give you up. The ransoming system works for men wealthy families pay to recover their sons and brothers. But women," he shook his head, "women are rarely ransomed. The process is too difficult, the amounts too high, the shame too great." "The shame?" "European families do not want their women back. Not after what happens here. A man can be enslaved for years, ransomed, and return home a hero who survived captivity. A woman who has been in a harem, who has been used by her owner, who may have borne his children she is damaged. Unmarriageable. A reminder of humiliation. Families pay to keep her away, not to bring her home." Isabella absorbed this. The calculation was brutal but logical. Her value to her captors was permanent. Her value to any potential rescuers was negligible. The system was designed to keep her here. But she was not willing to accept that design. The information, she said, about my daughter.